Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, there comes a time in everybody's life where you need to make a decision, where you need to decide if you should continue with a situation or let it go. And it could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be maybe a dream, maybe a goal. Maybe it's time to let that go. I rarely say that, but you know what? I think that comes under the category of what we're talking about. And we're going to dig into that today with a certified life coach. She's a TEDx speaker. She is also an emotional freedom technique practitioner, confidence expert, so much more. And I'm never going to let her go. Michelle Mehta joins us on the program. Welcome. How you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And you know what, Steve? I'm not going to let you go either because our camaraderie is just so special, what we share. And we don't come across this a lot in day-to-day life. So this is really special as
Yeah,
well.
we connect, and I know that
Yeah.
that connects with the audience and resonates. So this whole letting go thing, why don't we? I don't know. Should we center on relationships first, or is the concept of letting something go just universal? What do you think?
I mean, it could be both ways, right? A relationship is sometimes we think of relationship like a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance to fiance. But relationship is also friendship, is
Hmm.
also parental relationship, right? Mother, daughter, mother, son, father, daughter, father, son. Relationship is what brings humanness to humans. It's the connection,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes we can let it go. We can let people go. And sometimes we don't really have a choice, right?
And
And I
even,
paused there for a
I don't know where
reason.
you're going. Continue. Continue.
Right. I mean, I say because sometimes it's like, the word narcissism has been popping around a lot lately. And it's like, someone really close to me, like a father is a narcissist or a mother is a narcissist. How can you let someone that's raised you, that's given you this life, how can you let them go?
Hmm.
Sometimes your spouse, your significant other is a narcissist. How do you let them go? Sometimes your best friend is a narcissist. How can you let them go? Right? So it's like how do you navigate the relationships? And the people that get trapped in it the most are the empaths that feel everything. They walk into the room, there's nobody in the room, but yet they'll feel stress, right? They'll feel happy without anybody being in the room, right? They've taken on the energy of things outside of them. And I always truly believe that empaths and narcissists are a match made in heaven or a match made in hell, depending upon what side you're on.
Does it come down to the realization that this situation, no matter what it is, doesn't support you? You know when it's time to let it go. We don't want to. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of change, which we've often identified as scary. There's fear in change. But is it just come down to you just feel this is just not working for me? And you have to have the courage to let it go?
Right, which is why the phrase is like life begins at the end of your comfort zone,
Never heard that phrase. Hmm.
right? Like life begins at the end of your comfort zone. It doesn't start at the beginning of the comfort zone. It ends. And that's because comfort is what we know. Comfort is where our unconscious mind is having a party.
Yep.
Comfort is the safe zone. Comfort is that security blanket. Once it's gone, what do you do? And that's where a lot of growth happens because now you're basically thrown to the wolves and now you have to figure out, fend for yourself, right? And that happens in new relationships. That happens when you're finding a new job. That happens when you're embarking on a new journey. You've been working corporate. Now you want to become an entrepreneur because it
Hmm.
sounds sexy and everybody else is doing it. And then you realize, wait a minute, am I really fit for it? Right? And you realize, like, who are you hanging out with? Do I need to let them go? Are they keeping me small and safe? Or am I hanging out with the wolves that are like, let's go, let's do it, we could do it, what mindset are you in? And that also comes with, do you have the courage? And with courage comes vulnerability. With vulnerability comes authenticity, right? Are you being honest with yourself? How are you
It,
showing up? And do you have the strength within to let go?
that's the key. Having the strength, the confidence,
Yeah.
the faith in yourself and the universe, if you will, to let it go.
Yeah.
Is there a process involved here?
I think there is. I mean, first go listen to the episode from last week, right? We talked about hope, faith, and trust and how that ties in together. Paying attention to surrendering. What are you surrendering to? What are you letting go of when you're doing that process? And why are you questioning yourself? Why are you holding on to something? For what purpose are you holding on to? And neuro-linguistic programming, we ask the same question over and over again. It's like, for what purpose? For what purpose? For what purpose? And you will get to the root cause of that. What purpose is when the same words start repeating over and over and over again, right? That's when you know that's your foundation.
For me, I do what I call the scale of life. I'll just,
Yeah.
on a piece of paper, write literally the pros and the cons, and I'll just write them out. I'll do the scale of life and I'll put the pros and the cons and the yeah, positive and negative and see in front of me how they weigh out. And many times when I do that, it's like the scale is tipped. There's just, you can't deny that it's usually time to let it go.
Absolutely. You know, it was funny because I was talking to my cousin's sister and she was telling me about the story. And I said, and at the beginning of the story, she goes, Michelle, there were alarms, alarms, alarms. And I was like, you told me already there were alarms, alarms, alarms. Like we're on a Zoom conference right now, guys, and Steve's screen is going.
I don't know what is going on here. This is so bizarre. I've never experienced that before. That is the strangest thing.
I've never experienced something like this either, but we're just gonna roll with it because your audio is coming through. So,
Right, right. It's so bizarre.
but it's an
I didn't
alarm,
touch
right?
anything.
This is no, right? Nobody's touching anything, but this is an alarm that she was talking about, and yet she was having a hard time letting go. So it's like sometimes our unconscious doesn't even know what words we're telling ourselves or
Mm.
how we're expressing this story or explaining this story.
You said something earlier about knowing the signs, like they're there, but we ignore the signs. And I completely agree with you. There, in every relationship I had that either lasted a short period of time or a long period of time, it was the same thing. There was a sign in the beginning, and it has changed my mind into this phrase: people show you who they are in the beginning.
Right.
They do. It's there. You need to see it. You need to, and especially when it's a relationship, you're smitten in the beginning. It's like, oh, this is great. Everything's wonderful. Everything's fantastic. You don't see it because you don't want to see it, right?
Right. A lot of people don't see it because of the attention. They love that attention. They love that infatuation. They think, oh my God, this is one step closer.
Mm.
And, many years ago, I used to call myself a serial dater. I'm like, just date as many people as you can because once you decide to be committed, you're only stuck with that one person for the rest of your life, right? And I say stuck, like, there's no room to play otherwise. And so in my early 20s and even mid 20s, I was like, you gotta play the field, play it all the way till you can. And see what's out there because that's the exploratory phase, exploring who you are, where you want to go. And then I realized there were all sorts of people because I didn't have a filter, right? And as I got older, more filters started to come into play. And as we all get older, filters come into play, right? Like,
Mm.
these are my non-negotiables. This is what's going to happen. And now that I'm in my mid 30s, approaching late 30s, I'm realizing so much growth has happened. A, because of the awareness that I've created and knowing if something wasn't working, having the confidence and the courage to drop it. And so a lot of times my friends are like, how long is your longest relationship? And I'm like, 3 months maximum. And they're like,
Mhm.
how? How do you not have something longer than that? And I was like, because I know what I want. I'm crystal clear. And if something's not working, I have the ability to move on because I'm not going to waste my time trying to fix something if I already know in my heart that it's not going to work. And then it's like labels, right? Well, then you're stubborn. You're not giving that person a chance. It's like, but I'm true to myself. And if I'm true to myself, then nothing else matters.
If I heard this, I don't know, 5 years ago, I might think like others think, but I did the same, serial dating, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And you really get a good idea of who you are, what you want. And don't you feel after going through that journey that it is laser lightning focused in your mind what you want in a relationship?
Absolutely.
Mm,
And now, like, a little bit later, I'm like, if I can be with somebody for more than, I call it 90 days, if I can be with somebody for more than 90 days and I've been seeing what I've been wanting, and what I want, I don't think it's rocket science, just somebody to connect with me, on a daily basis, either via text, phone, or a FaceTime or a video call, or something like being in touch with my emotions. Like if I'm going through something challenging, give me like a good luck or something. Don't ghost me, right? If they can survive through that, you basically have me in your life. But people forget about that core fundamentals. They feel, oh, I don't need to text you all the time. I don't need to reach out to you all the time. And I don't need to have my phone on throughout the day. It's to each their own. And then they're like, well, why am I not in a relationship? Because relationship in the beginning takes work. And a lot of people don't
mm.
want to put in the work. They just kind of like the fling on the side.
I think there's more that comes into play, and I've realized this in the last couple of years. Addressing your love languages.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've talked about a couple episodes ago as well, is the importance of how important is it to not only understand your love language in that romantic relationship, but those also play out when in the corporate world. It plays out in
Mm-hmm.
the business world. It plays out
Does.
in the friendship world. Is how do you express love and how do you want to receive love? Right? So if you have that basic understanding, I mean, I was just looking online, like, the five love languages, and there's not just for the one book that came out. Now there's like series of them. I think there's
I
like
saw
10
that.
different ways. And I was so amazed to see like the importance of the love language.
Hmm. I wish I realized it a long time ago. And I think that every couple in the beginning should take the
Right?
quiz. It takes like, I don't know, 5 minutes, but it
Yeah.
reveals things because you may be treating somebody the way you want to be treated, but that's not what they're looking for. And then there's always going to be a mismatch. There's always it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Right.
So
Right. Absolutely.
now let's look at letting go when it comes to other situations. Let's say a job. How do you know when it's time to go? Is it the same
Well,
as a
I think
relationship?
a lot of people are like, you know what? I've been here, like, been here for 6 years. I love what I'm doing. I enjoy it. It fulfills me. Maybe I don't need to go look for another job right now. Maybe it's like I feel like a promotion's coming along the way. Or maybe I just feel like if I have this, then I'll quit this, right? So it's knowing your situation, being fully 100% transparent and aware in your situation, and then go from there and do the analysis, right? When was the last time you got that raise? When was the last time you got a new job description? When was the last time you got that promotion? When was the last time you felt like you were learning something new? If you're not learning anything and you're stagnant, maybe it's a time. But then you hear stories like, well, the job market is sucks right now, or the job market is volatile right now, or, I'm going to be happy because I just want to be here, right? Are you putting your fears in front of your growth?
Hmm.
And that's a question you should ask yourself.
I was at a job for a lot of years, and it was my second job. My first one was 5 months, and my second one it was big job at the age of just turned 18, and I stayed there for a long time, decades, right? And there was some changes. The person it was a radio job. I was on the air with somebody. She left, so they hired somebody else, and then I hired somebody else. It
Yeah.
was okay, but it wasn't the same. And as time went on, it felt uncomfortable. It started feeling just, it almost seemed as if they were forming an alliance over here, these two people, and I'm over here. We're not working together. And in a morning show on radio, you got to all be on the same page. And I gave it time, and I even looked at other jobs in the company in another state. And it just, none of it was making sense. I didn't feel comfortable with any of it. And after all that time, and people still talk about this radio show many years later because it was super successful.
Right.
I woke up on a Monday and I said to myself, Wednesday's your last day. And I went in and I said, yeah, Wednesday's it. I'm out of here. That's it. But like a relationship, and I guess it is a relationship, it just didn't feel right anymore. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't feeling supported. It just was off. Something was off there. So I don't know if that
Yeah.
description helps, in making that determination when it's time to let it go.
Yeah, I remember like, in 2012, I was working for this corporation that's still around. I still don't know understand how they're still around. But anyway, they're still around um and I was meant to work there for at least a year because it was a great corporation. It was Fortune 500 and it was in alignment with my goals. And in October, 8 months in, after going through eight managers, I realized, you know what? I'm gonna put in my 2 weeks because the stress that I was feeling
Mm.
and the stress that I was my body was reacting to. Like I used to never get pimples and acne. All of a sudden I'm
Ah,
getting adult acne and eating habits were down the drain because the stress was just killing me. And I just put in my 2 weeks, had no backup plan, no nothing, and I took that time off. And again, like, well, you're like, how could you get laid off or how could you quit in October? Are you crazy? Holly's around the corner. Like, how are you going to find a job right away? And I took that time, that
mm,
winter, to just reflect on who I am. And I did a study on how do I increase confidence. That was my first time stepping into, like, I've lost all my confidence. I've been in a soul-sucking environment for 8 months straight.
mm.
My value is diminished. I mean, it's just been depleted. What am I going to do? And at that moment, I Googled like how to build confidence. And they said, set up a goal and focus on that goal. Once you achieve it, you will start to feel the change. And Steve, I had never been a reader until 2013.
Mm.
I used to never write. I mean, I read maybe one or two books a year, but nothing like the way I did. And I said, you know what? I have a stack of personal development books that I bought years ago. Part of it just like I plunged into it. And I started just reading books. And through that, I discovered personal development. Through that, I discovered seeking help outside of myself, outside of my family, outside of my friends. And that made me the person who I am today. So it
Wow.
was a huge turning point to let go of a goal that you thought was going to fulfill you and step away from it completely and then rebuild yourself basically from scratch. And I'm so grateful for that organization. And you know what? If you ever want to know what that organization is, Netflix did a show on it. It's called Dirty Money. Season 2, episode 1 will tell you all about what this organization did. And I happened to play a role in it because that was my
Wow.
role as a personal banker. So it was
Mm.
a banking corporation. I still don't know how they're around for so many years after that. But hey, you know what? It made me a better person. And I'm forever grateful for that opportunity because I would have never thought otherwise.
Um, there was a lesson there. And were you aware of what was going on while you were there? What
I
they were
was.
doing? Yeah.
I was because my, I mean, I got trained in February. And, when you're looking for a new job, and you're in a room of people getting that new position, there should be excitement in the room. The excitement was, oh, you have no idea what's going to be on the other side of this branch. You have no idea what's going to be on the other side of this training center. This is just like, fun right now. Wait till you go into a branch. It's going to be a completely different story. Why would people who are getting promoted talk about the stress that's coming on the other side? Right. And so that would have been my first red flag. And then going into it, the people that I trained with, there was like 30 of us, they all
Hmm.
got different branches, all quit within that first month. And I was like, well, I'm going to push through because I'm better and I'm stronger. And, I
Mm.
talked myself into staying a little bit longer. And then in my branch alone, we were in a new shopping center. They were still building community, like a housing community around the corner. And um, our goal was two checking accounts and eight banking products every single day, whether customers came in or came out, didn't come in or didn't come in or come out. And no matter what, we had to hit that goal on a daily basis, right? Monday through Saturday. And I remember that my first month in, my store manager gets fired. The other two personal bankers get fired because they were opening up accounts for people that didn't have a social security number, but they had an ITIN number, which is like a different type of a number,
Hmm.
identification number.
Yep.
And that's how this branch manager got promoted because she had worked the system with a lot of Latin American communities. And so the other bankers were doing the same thing that she was doing. And so all of a sudden, I'm now the only personal banker 1 month into this branch. And I'm like, oh my God. And because to fill that role, we went through multiple branch managers to support us. And, the last manager was like, Michelle, you can't have a lunch break today because you didn't hit your numbers. Michelle, you got to stay later because you didn't hit your numbers. And I was like, are you like kidding me right now? And then they like, you can't work overtime. Right. And so all of a sudden, my family of four had 24 bank accounts under their name, and they had no idea that a debit card or a credit card was coming to their name, every single week to a point where my parents were like, we're tired.
Wow.
We're tired of the mail and we're tired of you being this way. Either you figure out a way to change or you quit. Either way, we're going to be happy because you're just miserable at the moment. And so I took bit the bullet and said, you know what, I'm just going to quit. And it was a hard decision because the benefits were great, the pay was great, the community was great, but inside I was just dying, to the point where I lost a lot of my friends too because I didn't want to bring that negative energy onto them.
Did you know from the very beginning something might be up here? Did it feel a little uncomfortable?
It did. It felt really uncomfortable from the get-go, because I was applying to other banks as well. And I took this bank because of the pay and the benefits and the
Hmm.
position. And I told my parents, I was like, because at that time the blame game is so popular, right? Because of you, I'm in this position. If it wasn't up to me, I would have chosen a different bank or a different position. And so there was a blame game because I didn't have the tools to take ownership of my own life or my life status. And so I would blame it on them. And then they're like, now we don't want to hear the blame game anymore. And obviously, through my own research and studies, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take full responsibility of all the actions that I go moving forward. And so
Mm.
it's really important for me to understand that, like, I got here because they thought it was a better idea, but I was the one that was in it 100%. And then when I stepped out of it, I realized, oh my God, this company made news with the Congress. And now there's a Netflix show about what they did. And I got so many sympathy phone calls like a couple years later saying, now we understand why you were a hot mess in the
Wow.
beginning, because who would have thought otherwise? And I am forever grateful for this organization, and I still have accounts with them because as a reminder of where I was to where I am today. Right. And so, but it just made me realize there's so much more that we hold on to. Sometimes we don't even know why we're holding on to it. But then when you just let the ropes go and you let that pressure go, it's just, there's a sense of freedom.
Mm.
And sometimes we're afraid of that freedom because it's too new, it's too popular, it's too strong. You don't know what that force is going to hold. But sometimes if you just let go, you're actually going to come out stronger and not feel that negative point.
And many believe that you can't get the good stuff in your life unless you let go of,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say the bad stuff, but the stuff that doesn't truly support you. And that job didn't. But I love the way you flip it and you look at it with gratitude, where you learned a lot. It kind of pushed you into reading, and look at where you've
Yeah.
come, that now that you've absorbed all this information and able to help other people. But I see the common theme here is we know it's not right. Even if
Right.
it's a little hint of something deep down inside, it's like, well, yeah, it's a good job, it's good pay, everything's good, yeah, but there was something there, and if it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, you
Right.
shouldn't be feeling that. We should not feel that in the beginning, with the call it the
Right.
first few months or whatever it might be. Hmm.
Right. And it's supposed to be easy in the beginning, right? Anything that you do brand new, it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be effortless. But if there's stress in the very beginning, double check your intuition. What is
Yeah.
it telling you? Right? Double check your body. What is it informing you? Right? Because our body, sometimes we just think logically and we think we have the answers, but go beyond the neck, right? Look into your heart, look into your stomach, right? Feel the joints and see what is stressing, like where the stressors are, because sometimes we don't even pay attention to that. And that's the main key, right? And then flip it and be like, you know what? Where can I find gratitude in this situation?
Yep.
Where can I find gratitude in the most rockiest situation? Where can I find gratitude in the most highest? Because that is the frequency that's consistent. Gratitude is never going to change. It's how we view things at the time of gratitude that gives us that perspective.
That financial institution reminds me of somebody who took a job about a year ago. And the first thing that they were told when they showed up for the interview
Right.
and the beginning of the training, oh, wow, just I'm glad you're here because like half the people that come here, they leave during lunch and don't come back. And that's what my friend heard initially. And what that job turned into be is during the training, they said, yeah, if you have any questions, don't call us. And then that turned into when she got sick and needed some major surgery. Nobody ever
Yeah.
reached out and see how she was doing. Um, she lasted there about 9 months and had to go. And to the day hasn't found another job that she really feels that supports her. But it was all there. Who when you hear,
Right.
yeah, most people don't come back after lunch right away. I'd be like, and she was a little put off by that, but it was like, all right, I'm this far into it. Let me continue. But eventually she let it go. You let it go. Same here. Good talk
Right.
today. We start these with not knowing where we're going to go, but we I think we nailed some pretty specific things in terms of what to look for, what to feel when you're in a situation. And again, this is just a piece of what you do when you work with somebody on the coaching level, uh,
Right.
even on the EFT level, which you practice as well. How do we find you? Your website is your name, right?
My website is my name, michellemehta.com. That's MICHELLEMEHTA.com. You can find me on all things social, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at I am Michelle Mehta. That's IAMMICHELLEMEHTA. And, for all the listeners out there, I am gifting a time with me. So go ahead and book a call with me. Let's connect. Let's figure out where you can let go, not only for today, but also in the future as well. And Steve, you may want to fix your camera because it's turned off now.
It's actually on. I never touched it. I don't know what's going on, but we'll have them look at that. I want to thank that
Yeah.
financial institution for doing what they did because it sounds like that was
Yeah.
the springboard to your path to coaching and helping.
Yes.
And right, so we have much gratitude to those people there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I thank you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Who would have thought that like being too nice could actually get you fired from another position? I mean, that's what they taught me. That my customer service skill set was so high, it actually hurt me in the next job that I was looking for. So you never know, right? You be too nice, you can still get in trouble. You be too mean, you still
Mm,
get in trouble. But the best thing is to be yourself and honor
Yep,
yourself.
yep. And if you're not able to, you're not in the right situation, and you got to let it go. Gotta let go.
Absolutely.
We got to go. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much. Bye, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.